Action, here we go. Podcast number 2. So, next guest, another Herefordian, another military man, an unlikely collaboration. We've met before, we've collaborated before. I know who you are. Talk to us, Paul. Who are you?
My name is Paul Crowe. I'm from Hereford. People might know me as Inspector Paul Crowe. I retired from West... Boo this. But before you're in those shoes, don't knock it. I retired from West Mercia about 10, 11 years ago, and I've done other things since then, but I basically served the Queen for 36 years.
Nice.
Starting in the military, 12 years with the Royal Engineers, moving on to West Mercia Police, and then moving on to Home Office, other stuff that I won't talk about really.
Yeah. Let's stop you there and stick with the army life. Is there another name for the engineers? Like the Scalies are the
Sappers.
Sappers.
So when you go back to medieval time, the engineers used to tunnel under the walls of the castles to bring them down, and that was called sapping. And therefore you got sappers that turned into the Royal Engineers.
Oh, nice.
And they're one of the biggest and oldest corps in the British Army.
Quality. Learn something every day. So, right from the beginning, I know this story and it's hilarious. Yeah, tell us the story about how you had to go for your haircut.
Right, so if you imagine I'm 16, in those days, back in the 70s, we had a 3-day week.
What was it, 70 what?
So you're asking cheeky questions
okay,
now. It was about 75. But yeah, so 3-day weeks, strikes, electricity going off at 10 o'clock at night.
I remember.
Jobs were not very easy to come by. So I was sort of toying with what I do in my life and not really had many options because I wasn't that good at school. So I thought, well, I'll just join the military like my grandfather, great-grandfather, father, etc. So my father used to be in the military, so I thought, right, I'll go for the military. So I went away, went to a selection centre, came back, and my dad said, right, son, what are you going to join? And I said, the infantry. And he said, oh, no, you're not. You must join and get a trade, otherwise I won't sign the papers. Because I was only 16, I couldn't go in off my own volition. So I had to go back. So I go back to the training centre and said, Crowe, yes, your father phoned us. RSM Crowe phoned us and you must have a trade. So after I did all the tests, they said, you can do any of these trades. And he went through a list saying, REME, signals, other trades. And I was sort of, no, doesn't. And he sort of must have seen a twinkle in my eyes. He said, what about the Royal Engineers, son? I said, well, what do they do? And he said, they blow things up. And I went, I'll take it. And he said, what do you like at school at woodwork? And I was pretty bad.
Were you good with Meccano?
So he said, Royal Engineers, Carpenter and Joiner. Off you go, son. So I thought, well, at least I'm in the army. So I go home and my dad says, so what is it, son? I said, Royal Engineers, Carpenter and Joiner. And he went, oh, okay, I'll sign the papers. So off I go on my merry way. And my starting date was January of 76. Come home one day, and I must quickly explain, at that stage I was drinking a lot of cider and being sick a lot, and one night I threw up out my window all over my dad's car. So he made me clean it off in my pyjamas when it was pissing down with rain and just said, get out and clean the car. So I had to go out in my pyjamas and I said, what do I use? He said, use your sleeves. So that was my dad. So after that, he's obviously getting a bit peed off with me enjoying life before I was going to join the army. So I came home and I was working part-time for Tesco's at the time, which is where McDonald's is now in town. That used to be a Tesco store.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So another historical point for Hereford.
Long ago. What year was that?
75. I keep telling you.
That's
giving away my age.
Quality, yeah.
So anyway, so I come home one day and he said, you best get your hair cut, son. I said, because I was dead into David Bowie then, my hair was long. I spent so much money having my hair done like David Bowie, it was just ridiculous. So my sisters loved it, thought it was great and cool. And I said, yeah, but Dad, I'm not joining the army for another 4 months. He said, 5 fucking days.
Nice.
You are joining in 5 days. Unbeknown to me, he'd rung the recruitment centre and said, this lad's getting on my nerves. He's got to go in the army. Can you get him in early? And half an hour later, they rang back and said, there's somebody dropped out, but it's 5 days, Jim. Do you think he'll be ready? He'll be ready. He'll be on the
That's
train.
proper old school, isn't it?
So that was his 5 days get your hair cut. And that was it. I was 16 and off I went.
Nice. First post in?
My first posting was Army Apprentice College.
Where's that?
That's down at Chepstow. So,
Okay.
you know the old Chepstow Bridge?
It's not too far, is it?
It's not too far, but as you go over the old Chepstow Bridge and look to your left, it used to be a big sign saying Army Apprentice College. I think the infantry have it now, but that's where I learnt to be a carpenter and joiner and also become a sort of boy soldier, if that makes sense.
So what, you just join the army and then you go straight into like the woodwork shop or...
No, you sort of come straight to the army, get on a bus, they treat you very nicely, and then they scream and shout at you for about 3 weeks, and then you start doing your trade training. But it's run along military lines. So
Sounds exactly like prison.
You've got to do both. You've got to do military, you've got to learn to shoot,
Yeah.
you've got to learn to march, you've got to do X, Y and Z, but you've also got to then, when you're knackered, go away and try and learn how to be a carpenter and joiner and do a sitting guilds. I mean, I was that young. Our sergeant was Sergeant Johnny Gall, and he was a hard bastard, but he was good and fair. And I remember it must have been about the 3rd, 4th day I was on parade trying to look smart. All recruits with new uniform looked like a bag of shit, to be honest. And he came up to me and he went, "Crow, have you shaved?" And quite innocently, I said, "I don't shave, Sergeant." And he went, "Right." And he grabbed me here, dragged me into the block, shouted at 2 of my mates, "You, get some shaving foam. You, get me a razor." And he took me into the block, filled the sink with hot water and said, "And shaved me there and then."
I've had that experience, not in the army, but I've
But
had
literally shaved me, so I come out with all these cuts.
Yeah.
And
that. Edward Scissorhands.
Edward Scissorhands, look. And had to shave every day from there on. So
I had exactly the same experience, but it was in Borstal. And it was like they give you the old plastic bit white and orange razor, and we're all of us 16. Not one of us needed to shave. And every morning you're at the
had
sink.
to shave.
Shaving, getting screamed at, getting cut. One blade a week, and you really didn't need it.
I mean, I enjoyed Chepstow. It was good fun, and I met some really good people and some good mates that are still in touch now. But the thing is, what people don't realise is that a lot goes on in the military that you never see. One of the things I always remember, every Friday we had to line up, march, halt, salute the officer, and pick up our pay for the week. And what they did, they allowed you £3 a week to live off.
Nice.
That was to buy your soap, shampoo, polish. And if you were lucky, you'd get a packet of fags. £3 a week. And then when I went on my first leave, which was now coming up to Christmas, they said, "We've saved the rest for your Crow." And I was like, I've only been getting £3 a week. I must be rich. And they gave me my pay to go home. And it was something like £89.70. And I thought, I've been in the military now for 4 months and I've got less than 90 quid.
Yeah.
And that was it. But different times.
What did you do with that? First pay packet, piss it up?
First paid packet should have lasted 3 weeks, lasted about 5 nights.
Yeah, beautiful.
And there it was.
So it should be as well, if you don't piss up your first pay packet. Where was your first abroad posting?
So from Chepstow I went down to Gibraltar Barracks to train as a combat engineer. And a lot of people don't realise that being a combat engineer means that you deal with all the IEDs, mine warfare, laying and picking them up, or clearing them I should say.
Yeah.
Bridge building, explosives. So it's quite hard work and quite sexy in a way. So after
You
doing
with Meccano as a kid, didn't you?
my dad couldn't afford Meccano, to be honest. We had 5 kids in the family and we couldn't afford stuff, trust me. So I was a poor Tupsley lad that just wanted to get away. And
Are you Hereford born and bred then? Yeah.
well, I wasn't born and bred, but my mother comes from Hereford. My father was in the military, so not a lot of guessing, but he was in Hereford and met my mum. And then they travelled around the world with us. Well, I wasn't born then, but I was born in Colchester and then moved to Dundee.
Oh, you're a proper squaddy boy.
From Dundee, I went to Kenya in Africa.
Yeah.
From Kenya, we went to Yemen, Aden, got blown out, got attacked and forced out of Kenya by the rebels. And we had to fly out 2-3 in the morning, back to the UK, back to Yorkshire, and eventually, when my father decided to leave the military, come back to Hereford. So I arrived at Hereford when I was about 10.
Yeah. So
and I was just out of place, really out of place, because I had bleached blonde hair. I was brown as a berry because I'd been living in the sun for about 4 years. You didn't have sun cream in those days. And when you told people you lived in Kenya and Aden, they just didn't believe in Hereford in those days.
Yeah, I bet.
So I went to secondary school, and then that was at Bishop's. And then as soon as I could, I left, joined the military. But my first overseas posting was Germany.
Okay.
Hamel.
That's standard posting, isn't it, really? For back then.
In those days, and again, a lot of people forget, the Cold War was really quite current.
Yeah.
So we were sent to West Germany as part of the force that would stop the Russians. The fear was the Russians would come over the border and take over West Germany. So Germany was divided in two. You had West Germany and East Germany, and Berlin was a little spot in the middle of East Germany.
Yeah, the wall was still up then,
where you had the wall, etc., etc. So there was a lot going on. So our role was try to negate the Russians coming through. Now I've met the Russians in different roles.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that subject. But
you talk to them about it, and they're like, we were afraid you were going to come this way. So we're both looking at each other, thinking the same thing, I think, to be quite fair. But yeah, Germany was a great posting, but it's quite interesting because as part of our mobile brigade that we would be flown in ahead of troops to lay minefields and route denial to try and funnel the enemy into certain kill zones. So my life expectancy as a Royal Engineer in those days was 4 minutes.
Wow. Really?
4
I wouldn't say
minutes.
4 years.
4 minutes. They
Wow.
said if the Russians come over the top, as a frontline sapper Royal Engineer,
It was fodder.
we were pretty much fodder. We were
Yeah,
going to
yeah.
get booted, or
Wow.
captured.
It really is a privilege to have you here tonight.
I lasted, but you can understand why we worked hard and play hard. And
yeah, for
got
sure.
drunk a few times.
Did you do Iraq anywhere? No.
No, I mean, I did. I spent 6 years. That was my first post in Germany. Then I went as a trained NCO to Gibraltar Barracks in Surrey, and taught recruits anything from how to shoot as a skill arms instructor, and then on to teaching military combat engineering, which was great. I loved it. And then I went back as a corporal to Germany, and again was in West Germany, but in Iserlohn. So I had my own section there and did certain things.
Okay.
And most of the time there we did, this was all before Iraq, Afghanistan, etc.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did 3 tours of Northern Ireland.
Okay. I know there were some tours of Iraq back then that weren't like, as popular as they are now. Whatever. But yeah, the Northern Ireland thing's interesting, isn't it?
Well, the Northern Ireland thing was a big thing back then, 70s, early 80s.
Yeah. I remember living through it.
It was a massive thing, really, and it's a long history, and I won't.
It was always in the headlines. I mean, I grew up with Northern Ireland, and it was always in the news. There was always bombs going off somewhere.
It was an unfortunate, nasty conflict, is the way I'd sum it up, because you
that
never.
still hasn't been resolved.
It still hasn't been resolved. You never knew who your enemy were.
Yeah.
You know, it's very difficult.
So, what age were you when you was posted over there?
Well, when I first got there, that's a funny story. I got to Hamel and they said, right, Krog, in the office, can you speak to the officer? And he said, we're off to Ireland, Crow. You're going to be what they call rear party, stand behind, because I'd just arrived. And I said, what do you mean stand behind? Oh, well, we're going to Ireland and you've missed a boat. And I said, but why can't you take me? And they said, well, you missed some of your training. And I said, well, look, I'll catch up with the training. Bear in mind, I'm only 18 now.
Yeah.
So the worst thing you want to be is left behind when there's an operational tour going on. So I convinced the officers and the staff, they looked at each other and went, well, fair dues, Crow, you're going.
He's keen.
And off I went. So I was 18 when I landed. So it's quite a daunting... We laugh about it, and I think you need a black sense of humour. I signed my will away to my mum when I was 18.
I did the same with my son.
Got my dog tags. And when you put the dog tags on and you arrive and you suddenly think this is now getting a bit... It's a different mindset, really.
Yeah.
But I did 3 tours of Ireland, mostly what we call specialist search, IED clearance, road clearance, searching for bombs, culvert bombs, or searching for ammunition in houses, garages, and in land where the IRA used to hide them. So we were quite successful to keep it to a minimum.
That must have been scary though. I mean, I remember how keen I was to get to the front line, and I wasn't even a soldier. I remember with George, literally, did I write a will or tell you to divide things up, or do you remember that conversation when I first went in, and I was like, oh, I'll give this to Olympia and give. I can't remember if it was a verbal will or a written will, but yeah, it was. God only knows why us young people are so keen to put ourselves in that situation. It's because we don't actually know what we're getting into.
I think for you that's really brave, Pete, because you almost went on your own, or stupid, or a bit of both.
A bit of both.
I think there's a bit of stupidity and naivety, and it's not really brave, because I think with the military, and a lot of people say, why do people die for the country?
Yeah.
I don't want to die for my country.
Yeah, I don't want to die.
I don't want to die, but if I'm going to die, I'm going to die for my mates.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And I'm not going to let them down.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you going.
Yeah.
Not letting yourself down in their eyes.
That's exactly what I experienced the first time I got to the
and
front
that's
line.
what people don't realise.
Yeah.
It's like, we're mates now.
I was with people that I'd met that day, and I would pull in with a team that were just going out, and I didn't know them, they didn't know me. But yeah, when you're in amongst it, the I can never say this word, the camaraderie that is a lifelong bond, and it is just about that. While you're there, you've got each other's backs, and there's something about that. I've only experienced that on the front line.
Yeah,
not being military either.
It's interesting because when I joined the police, that was a different concept, and I couldn't get my head around it to start with. And
that's because they're all bastards.
They're not all bastards, Pete. But yeah, okay.
I'm joking.
Objection, Your Honour. But
overruled.
what I found with the police, you had colleagues.
Yeah.
But being in the military was different. In the military, they'd come into the room, and my nickname was Blue Crow. So, Blue, come on, we're going downtown.
Why blue? Because your eyes?
It's a long story.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
we'll get there.
So they'd come in the room and say, Blue, come on, we're going downtown. I haven't got a shirt. What do you mean you haven't got a shirt? Have my shirt. I haven't got any skiddies. Right, here's me pants. What else you want? Socks, trousers? They'd literally dress you and drag you out the block.
Got no money.
I got no money. You have now.
Yeah.
So you didn't need that's the type of blokes they were.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it was cool. So we had some good fun, really. And I'm still in touch with them now. Funny enough, before I come up here, somebody from 42 Field Squadron was saying, Paulie, you're coming to Ripon next year to the races. We're having a massive reunion. And that was, how many years ago was that? 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So fair dues to them.
That is quality. Well, I think
Quality.
Yeah, if a group of lads that have been through that, and then you get together so many years later.
Yeah, and it's still going. But when I was in 5 Field Squadron, which was in Iserlohn, you all know the film Zulu.
Yeah.
Well, John Chard used to be in 5 Field Squadron, Royal Engineers. So on our plaque, we've got his family crest.
Oh, nice.
With a Zulu shield.
Yeah, that's cool.
So he had typical engineers. Class film. Because we could build, we built our own bars in every squadron block. And ours was done with a massive mosaic of the Rorke's Drift and the Zulus and John Chard and his, it was all done out fantastic.
Nice.
And the family came over one night to be introduced to us when we adopted their shield as our squadron emblem. They had to be ushered up because some of the boys were getting a bit drunk.
As you do.
As you do.
What do you want to go to, G?
Is there anything you can tell us about Northern Ireland, what you did there?
Yeah. Good point.
I've got to be careful what I say. But
It must have been scary. I mean, I remember sitting at home, McDonald's getting blown up left, right and centre. Maggie Thatcher's hotel room getting blown up. What's his name's boat getting blown up, Montgomery. I mean, they were at it. They were at it a lot.
You've got to remember that a lot of the time you're doing a lot of waiting around or doing standard, obvious jobs that don't entail a lot of danger at all, and a lot of people say that. It's a lot of waiting around, then suddenly the button hits and you've got to go out and do what you've got to do. But we used to do, like I say, a lot of search. So we used to do IED clearance, bomb clearance, which was very dangerous.
There's a lot of pub bombings going on back then, wasn't there?
Yeah, there was. There's not a lot we could do to stop.
You get a phone call, it's been confirmed, you got a bit of time to get out of it.
They normally used to give you a bit of time.
Yeah.
But, I mean, if you look at a culvert bomb, for example, which the engineers we'd worked with a guy called Ato, and you can look all this up online, so it's no secret. And Ato was one of the bravest men or women in the British Army because they were called Felix. Nicknamed him Felix. An Ato is an ammunition technician officer.
Okay.
So what would happen? Let's say somebody said we found a big culvert bomb under the road. A culvert runs under the road and lets the water flow over the road.
Yeah, like a
So you imagine in Ireland it's very wet.
Yeah.
So there's culverts every 300-400 metres. And what the IRA used to like to do was pack milk churns full of explosives.
Oh, yeah, I remember that, yeah.
Called AMFO,
Yeah,
and I won't
yeah,
go into that. Put it under a culvert, about 6 milk churns, wait for a British patrol to drive across, press the button, and
It'd just be like a concrete tube under the ground, wouldn't it, where the water runs
Yeah,
through,
and that's a
then
culvert.
the cars would go over the top of
Yep,
it. Yeah, so
absolutely.
It's just, I remember.
so there was a lot of that. So to lead up and to allow the ATO guy to be able to go up and defuse that safely, the engineers would work with ATO and clear up to the site. So you'd clear up to the bomb, and the last poor bloke would put the suit on with his little tripwire feeler
Yeah.
and have to feel right up to the device. Because what they do is think, right, I know when they come and try and defuse this, if it doesn't work, we'll make sure that somebody's going to get killed. So you might have seen the Hurt Locker.
I haven't actually seen it.
Don't watch it. It's
Yeah,
crap.
that's why I haven't. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
But it sort of outlines what ATO does.
Yeah.
But what in the British Army, the Royal Engineers do the clearance up to the explosion, which allows ATO to come in and do
diffuse
his
the
bit,
device.
diffuse it or blow it
Or
up.
blow it, yeah.
So that was quite technical and interesting. I blew the border up in Ireland once. That was good. So they called us down to blow the border up. And that was epic.
Really?
Epic.
You blew the actual
So
border
it's
up?
over 30 years, so I can talk about it now.
Okay, yeah.
So basically,
So the actual border, so you've got like a Northern Ireland British...
yeah. So you've got Southern Ireland, Northern Ireland, and there was a small outpost overlooking the border road, and it was only a narrow road, like a small B road that you'd get in Hereford. And what was happening all the time from the south, the IRA Paddy would come through with his lorry full of mortars and keep shelling
That's so old school. Paddy would come through. Yeah, it's fucking ace. I
the
love it.
SF base,
Yeah.
security forces base, and so the lads had a number of attacks. So obviously this was discussed at length, and they tried to do a number of measures to stop this happening. So to put concrete tank teeth out, and Paddy would come along and move them, and whatever they seemed to do, Paddy would get round and still more to the base. So in the end, they said we need a permanent solution. So they had to go to the Home Secretary because the plan was to blow the border up, and from the border.
Whose plan? Paddy's?
No, it's our plan.
Okay.
So our plan was, well, let's deny them the road totally. So that if they want to come back and fill it in, it's going to take them a day to fill it in. And by that stage, we'll know about it and we'll get troops down to help them and get rid of them. So we got flown in once the infantry had secured the area because we're right on the border. And then we prepared the demolitions, and it took us quite a long while. And I won't go through the process, but it's not simple as just putting explosives on top of the road. We had to go down.
It's not like the bridge on the River Kwai.
Not like the bridge on the River, blow a crater, put more explosives down, and we'd worked for days preparing these explosives, and then blow the border up. And it was left. I can only describe it as it was about 200 metres long, but it looked like the.
And what was the point of that?
Well, denying access.
Just no vehicle access.
No vehicle could get through it.
Okay.
It looked like the face of the moon. It
Yeah.
was
Okay.
just,
Cool.
and I could stand in one of the craters, and if I stuck my hand up, I still wouldn't reach the top. So we
wow.
knew that if they want to get through, they're going to need 4 or 5 tons, truckloads of gravel just to fill 2 of the holes in.
Makes you wonder why they didn't do that in Mosul when they're sending 100 car bombs in every day. Just
Yeah, but that was total because it was the border.
yeah.
We didn't need to go up and down. We were trying to stop and get in.
Traffic.
So they couldn't get anywhere near to launch their attack, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
But
quality.
that was one quality job amongst many.
And you did 3 tours there.
I did 3 tours.
Anywhere else exciting? Before we move away from military.
Military, I did a lot of shorter tours elsewhere, but not really too exciting, all that.
What do you reckon, G?
Yeah, we'll move on to the.
Take it to the Hereford Police, yeah? It's
Ooh,
going to be a juicy bit, isn't it? It's a bit weird. It's not weird. I mean, I've known you a while now, and it's yeah. I would if you had told me when I was in Swindon doing whatever I was doing that I'd be mates with the Bobby, it would do whatever. But yeah, it is weird, and we've done an art exhibition together, which
that's
which
quite
is
nice.
quality, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I mean, let's get. So you came out of military life. You're still in Hereford. You're on Civvy Street.
I
Your
didn't
dad's
really
told
want to
you
come out
get
of the
another
military, if I'm
haircut and join
honest.
the police force.
I didn't want to really leave, if the truth be known, but for personal reasons I had to.
Okay.
Or felt I had to.
Okay.
I'd come back from Ireland, had long hair and a beard, and I was doing.
You look like the
stuff.
IRA.
And I looked like the IRA, so that was quite funny. But yeah, so I come back to Hereford, think I've got to get a job. Went to the fire brigade. They went, "We're not recruiting at the moment, Paul, but you sound ideal."
My favourite job
And then
in the
somebody
world.
said, "Join the police," and I went, "You're joking."
Who said that to you?
Somebody in the military said, "Why don't you join the police?" And I was like, "The police?" And I wasn't innocent when I was young, put it that way.
It's quite common though. But from people I know now, from people like you, Pete Hornet, other people that have gone military and then into the police force. I mean, it's in some ways it seems like a natural transition.
It seems like a natural transition, but it isn't.
Yeah. I mean, now I know they're complete opposites, and
because I think, and I'll be quite honest about this, I thought leaving the military and having the background and the experiences that I had, oh God, what can go wrong? This will be a piece of piss. Being
you're
a
not
policeman.
welcome with open arms, are you?
Stood in the police corner telling lads to move on.
Yeah.
Dear God. I was shocked, to be honest.
Yeah.
Bear in mind now it's 87, so the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s especially. Lager louts. 6,000 people in Hereford. Pissed up, coming out the pubs or clubs at 2 a.m.
Nothing's changed.
Fighting. Yeah, but there's less of it now, I think. Public order wise, there's different crime. And you were there in those days with just a wooden stick in your pocket and a radio if you're lucky. Whistle. We just got past that piece. We did have radios.
You weren't wearing the capes anymore.
No, but you might as well have been because I must admit, I've been just.
It's a different kind of front line, isn't it?
It's a different kind of front line, and you're not 24/7 like when your mates in the military. You're 24/7.
Yeah.
You sleep with them, you drink with them.
Yeah,
you
you're just
eat
shift
with them.
working now.
But now it's shift work and you go home afterwards or you're told to work on or whatever. And it was difficult. I found the clerical side.
I don't think that. I mean, was there that camaraderie?
I was lucky when I joined because there was a lot of ex-military guys from the camp, especially 264 signals.
Yeah.
They were actually police officers. So with the banter came a lot of, "Look, Paul, are you all right, mate? Look, come and sit down with me and let me show you how to do this." So I had a lot of help in that respect because in those days, and I think it's changed for the worse, but that's just a personal opinion. You had a lot of ex-military guys that had a lot of experience and weren't, dare I say, you didn't join the military because you were a brilliant academic. You mostly joined the military at 16 because you had no other options.
It's their old prison.
And you might as well do that or go to prison.
Yeah.
And that was my story, really. So I think being a police officer, especially out on the beat and meeting the youngsters, it's nice to know. I mean, somebody once said to me, a chief inspector when I first joined, dragged me in the office, said, "Crow, sit down. How are you finding policing?" I went, "Yeah, it's different, but I hope I get this." Or I was shocked, to be honest. And I think the burden of paperwork, people don't realise. If you're not a clerical type of guy, a lot of squaddies aren't. Let's do a task. Go out, build a bridge, strip it out, debrief, cup of tea, move on to the next task.
Every time we nick somebody, got to write 4 essays.
Everything in the military was very black and white. In the police, there's big grey areas, mental health, all sorts. So anyway, so he sits me down and says, "Okay, one bit of advice I'll give you, Crow, and that is always treat people like you expect your family to be treated, and you won't go far wrong. Treat people with respect, and they will always come back and treat you back with respect. No matter what they've done, and no matter how nasty they are, just let them calm down and let them see the light, and you'll get them."
He's talking about people you're going to meet on the job every day.
Yeah, on the job. Criminals.
Criminals, yeah.
people you arrested because
Me.
let's face it, some of the biggest buzzes I've got is I've had as a police officer, especially when I went on to be a detective sergeant, detective inspector, was some of the best jobs I did was proving people's innocence.
Yeah.
I'm there to collect the facts, and you've got to be very objective about things. So, but yeah, it was a good bit of advice because I thought he's absolutely right. So, once in those days, you used to do all the fingerprint photographs, DNA.
Yeah. What ball ache every time.
But you used to talk to people, and they'd see that you were a human being, and vice versa. And by the end of it, they might come in fighting with you, but 9 times out of 10, you go out the door and say, "All right, fair cop," and off they go.
It resonates with me so deeply because I was the other side of that fence, and I was the career criminal. I was the young lad that fucking hated old Bill. That was ACAB everything. It was us against them. It was gang warfare. I mean, literally in Swindon, where I was from, we'd do dumbass things like go to the courthouse just to nick their hats, and then one time we got a pig's head from the butcher and put the policeman's hat on it and hang it in the square. I mean, it literally was war on the police.
Hatred.
And this was Swindon, and it was war on the police. And yeah, I could only imagine what it was like from your side.
I mean, Hereford wasn't so bad because Hereford, dare I say, in those days, and still really, is a big village.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that were committing the crime would get to know you. And if you were offy with them all the time, you're going to get yourself beaten up or complaints, etc., etc. So I was a Hereford lad. So I didn't want to move away from Hereford. Any arrogance that I saw was normally from people outside of Hereford that couldn't give a monkey's. Like if the Met come up to help us with a job. Not knocking the Met, but I would always say it's
they ain't
very...
got to live here.
Yeah, absolutely. And also it's very easy for people to go, do you know what? I hate the police.
Yeah.
I hate the fucking police.
Yeah. It still
Because they're
goes
just
on
ignorant.
Today. Yeah, it's like that today. Still.
And yet they're the first ones to phone us and say, my daughter's gone missing.
Yeah.
Mr. Crowe, she's
Someone's
gone
at my
missing.
door.
Somebody's at my door, help,
Yeah.
please. And I've had that so often. But generally, and here's the story, I went out the other night for a meal with a wife, and we're in Miller and Carter, and a guy comes in and looks at me, and he's paying for more drinks, and he comes over and he said, respect. And I thought, is he an ex-engineer? I'll respect. I don't think he's in it. I know him from somewhere, and it clicked. I'd arrested him when he was young, and he's quite a big lad.
Yeah.
So I thought, because when I was in the Brit pub a couple of years ago, he came on with his girlfriend and went, oh, I know you. And I looked at him and went, here we go. He said, you were a copper, weren't you? And I sort of went, oh, I don't think so. He said, yeah, you were. Yes, you were, son. And I went, yeah, okay. I thought, here we go. He said, no, fair dues. You wrapped me round the legs with that button, but I deserve it. Do you want a beer? And it was him, and I hadn't seen him for a couple of years. So as I went out, I said respect back to him, and he got up and he said, fair. He turned around to his girlfriend. He wrapped me round the legs with a button, he did, but it was fair. So it's quite funny in a way.
It could go either way, though, wouldn't it? With the beer inside him, you're going to get a big bear hug, or you're going to get a whack.
Luckily, 95% of the time when I've been in Hereford, and I finished 10 years ago and went on to do home office stuff, 95% of the time people go, hello, Mr. Crowe, how are you? And can I buy you a beer? And that's,
I can relate to that as well. I've had it.
I think what people forget about police officers, they're human beings. So they make mistakes, they get scared, they don't know what to do, and they're vulnerable like anybody else. And at the moment, I think one of the biggest problems the police force has got, and it's a personal view of my own, is that there's a lack of leadership, and we forget that over the last 20 years, not only have we been reduced in ranks, but they've increased all these specialist units, and they all basically come from the shifts. So they're struggling to cope.
Yeah.
But there we are.
It's it is again being the other side of the fence to you. I see it differently. I think I'd rather revert to the old days where you get a truncheon on the head and a pointy finger rather than
I used to call it words of advice.
Now we call it being stitched up. But
no.
I
mean that's a good phrase, that, being stitched up, because somebody said to me, "You're going to stitch me up, Crow, aren't you?" And I said, "Listen, son, there's two things you've got to consider. A, you're fucking stupid enough to do it again. So if I can't prove it this time, you'll come again.
Yeah. It's just a
And
patience
B,
game,
I
isn't
will
it?
never stitch you up. Never in my life will I stitch anybody up because it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'd rather you walk out, smile your head off, but I'll get you next time.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is.
I've always, like in my head with the old Bill and you lot and us lot, it's always been, you know, sometimes, you've stood in court opposite them and you just know they're fucking lying. I mean, I've had it. Even the judges said you're fucking, you know. Yeah, so you get some old Bill that are straight as you like, and you get some that'll just lie and just manipulate.
I mean, I
the
must
situation.
say, I've been lucky. West Mercia and where I was, 99% of the bobbies I've worked with, they might not be the easiest guys to get on with, or girls, but the majority of them were.
It's old school though, isn't it? You're talking about your generation.
They were old school,
Yeah,
and they were good guys and girls. I mean, when I was a shift inspector, 60% of my shift were female.
Yeah.
And I tell you what,
No wonder you were a workaholic. Sorry, Anne-Marie.
they kicked ass. We had a little Welsh girl come, never forget, very petite, attractive girl. I won't tell you her name, but
bludgeon you to death if you cross the line.
I thought, Christ, we've got to look out for this girl, because she literally is tiny. But public order, big bloke, she'd be up there. We called her the Welsh Dragon. Look here, you. And these blokes were like that. She was like a terrier. She was great. And some of the girls we worked on, and I always used to equate the shift. I used to love being a shift inspector, because when all the office idiots went home, you run the city, if that makes sense.
We're still talking about Hereford, yeah?
We're still talking about
Beautiful.
Hereford. So you'd have a shift, you want to look after the shift, get out with your shift and chill, and have some fun.
That's
and
cool.
Look after them. But there we are.
It's nice to hear that side of it. I mean, yeah, it's... I know.
People used to say to me, and this is the funny thing, is Hereford busy? And I used to say to all these Met guys and other people that were in bigger forces, they go, "Oh, Hereford, a bit sleepy, innit?" And I said, "Hang on, son.
Whatever. Yeah, no.
Whatever. How many do you arrest in London then?" I'll tell you how many, because I've worked it out. So if we arrested 6,000 plus a year, that was over 10% of the population
Yeah.
that you used to actually arrest. The other 10% we used to tell them to F off and go home, because we didn't have cell capacity to arrest. When the fights were going on, half the time we only had 8 cells.
Yeah.
It's better now, but bloody hell.
Got 10.
But used to say to the Met and those, "Yeah, really, mate? Come and join us then." They'd sell their houses down in London, come to Hereford for the quiet life, and then 2 weeks later go.
The thing is with somewhere like the Met, as how I would see it, I mean, there's no face. I mean, it's just so many of them.
Yeah.
So many. Whereas in Hereford, you're always, like you say, you're going to repeat offend. Even like in Swindon, every old Bill knew me, and I knew every old Bill.
Yeah.
And I was in court every single week of my life. And it was just.
That's not the police's fault, was it?
No, it's no one's fault but my own.
Let's give them some hard time back.
There's no blame. It's just how it was back then. But yeah, I mean, somewhere like the Met. I mean, I've never been arrested in London, but fuck me, I can't imagine it would be very. I mean, you're just a nobody.
It must be very difficult being an officer in the Met, whether you're an officer for the police or an ambulance driver.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so vast.
Massive,
that's it.
city.
And it's just like, what the fuck?
And I'm sure there's fantastic police officers in the Met, don't get me wrong. And they've got bigger burdens, they've got a lot of anti-terrorist stuff.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff. So all these specialist roles are taking people away from the shifts, and suddenly the people left are under a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it's
a lot of pressure, really.
Everyone's cracking under the pressure at the moment. I can't imagine what it would be like to even.
But I was quite fortunate when I joined Hereford, coming straight from the military, and a lot of people didn't realise that. So I turned up when I was 28. I'd done 12 years in the military.
We're still talking 1965, yeah?
Cheeky bastard. 1987, people. Move forward. So
it's quality.
So anyway, and I arrive in the crew room, and the first thing, and there was one police officer always is who thinks he's the kingpin, and he's a bit of a twat, and said, "Oi, Sprog, mine's a tea, white one sugar." And I went, "That's funny. Mine's tea, no sugar." How's that sound? Fuck off. And he just looked at me and they went, "Ooh." I said, "Oh, get a grip, lads.
Yeah.
Come on. Just finish doing X, Y, and Z in Ireland, and I come here and you lot call me a sprog. How long are you done in, son?"
What's a sprog?
A sprog is somebody new to the job.
Okay.
So
a newbie. Yeah.
A newbie.
Yeah.
So I put them in the place a bit and then just went about my business, really. But to policing, I was a sprock because I was new to it, and I didn't.
I know a couple of military guys, like good mates, like me and yourself, and like I said earlier, Pete Hornet, and it's I know that you guys were old school, and I know that if I'd come across you, it would have been all right. It wouldn't have been fucking mayhem that a lot of time it has been, just because people are, some old Bill are just absolute fuckers because they want to be or they can be, but like the likes of you and Pete Hornet. You just do your job properly. I
think there's most probably more the likes of me and Pete than you realise.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's like, here's an analogy. I always used to say to people, because people, wherever I used to go when I was a police officer, people go, "You're a police officer, but you seem all right."
Yeah.
He's a bastard. And you get bored with this, and I say it's like this. If you get a plumber that comes to your house, or a carpenter or an electrician, and does a bad job, he goes away, and nobody really knows about that. You might tell your mates, "Oh, so-and-so's an arsehole as a plumber," but that's where it stays. If you're an arsehole as a police officer, I'm not saying there's many of them about, but the ones that do stick out, and they tend to get known by everybody.
Yeah.
Because half the time I could go to a guy's place and say, "Look," and I won't mention names, "I've come here to nick you." And I'll never forget the one guy one night said, "Oh, but Mr. Crow, it's Friday." And I said, "I know. It's a shame, isn't it? It's
Friday. Friday, Saturday, Sunday in the sales until court on Monday.
There's no court tomorrow.
I know, innit?
And it's a bank holiday.
You never want to get nicked on a Friday. Fuck
and it's a bank holiday. And he looked at me and went,
"Oh, fuck.
You bastard."
So that means till Tuesday.
Till Tuesday. And he went,
"Yeah, that's
he said,
a nightmare.
What do you want to speak to me about?" And I went, "All those checks you've dropped around the county?" He said, "Yeah, okay." I said, "How many was there?" He said, "About 30. I said, "No, there's more than that."
The whole checkbook.
Okay, it was about 60. I said, "You come down Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. in the morning."
Yeah. I've had that.
If you don't, I'm going to wait till the next weekend and nick you at weekend and you'll stay in. And he went, "Okay."
I've had that.
So anyhow, I go on duty. I'm out on patrol and I said, "Yeah, on the radio. Has he come in?" No, he hasn't yet. It's 11:15. And I see him running down the back street like this. And I pull up by his side and said, "You're late." He went, "I'm getting there, Mr. Crow."
That's cool.
And he come in and he said, "How long will this take? Let's just do it."
Yeah, that's cool. I've been pulled over roadside and the guy's like, "Fuck me, I could nick you now, but I've got to come back to the station, do all the paper." And he literally looked at me and said, "Will you hand yourself in at 8 o'clock tomorrow?" And I was like, "Mate, I will. On a handshake, old school, I'll be there." And that's in Hereford.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had some stand-up arguments.
It's in your interest, isn't it, to cooperate, really?
I've had some stand-up arguments. Perhaps it's not the way to go, but sometimes you've got to stand your ground and say, "Look, son, with all due respect, you want to come around my house and batter me, bring some friends."
Yeah.
That's the way it is.
And I'll bring some.
But I suggest you don't.
That's cool. Yeah, that's really cool. I love it. I could talk all night about the old Bill, but yeah, I'm probably losing friends by the minute.
Yeah, but like I always say, spend a day in their boots and see how difficult it is. Because the thing about the old Bill, you'd be dealing with a young girl that's sudden's unexplained death, and traumatised family, and having to, deal with that.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, you're on the street and somebody spitting in your face, calling you a big bastard, and you're like,
it's like you say. I mean,
it's not the easiest of jobs.
I'm privy to, again, both sides of the fence. So I know, some horrible fuckers that will never be nice and will always live on that
It's
side.
the same with guys on your side of the fence.
Yeah.
I know people. I know I can go to certain people and they'll go, "All right, Miss Crow, let's sort this out."
Yeah, it's
and others that would just want to kill me just because I've got a uniform.
Just because you're old Bill. Yeah. It's weird. It's.
I've always said if you could sit people down, and I always used to like the process of interviewing people, and I always used to say to my recruits something. They'd come in and say, "I don't want to interview him, boss." I said, "Why not?" "Well, because he hates me and he's going to kill me." I said, "That's the reason you've got to go and interview him.
Yeah.
Sit down and talk to him.
You can break that down.
Break it down. Explain why. Because half the time they say, "Why did you do this?" And you say, "I did this because I thought you were doing that."
Yeah.
And then they sort of look at you and go, "Oh, fair enough."
Yeah, I've kicked off loads of times just because of bad police attitude. Fuck you, like I'm not gonna, I'd rather take a beating than back down. And that's just because of bad, in my opinion, your
Some-
bad attitude. but-
Sometimes, if you're going with a bad attitude, it just breeds bad attitude.
Yeah. I mean,
Behaviour breeds behaviour.
Yeah. The
So-
situation is just.
Sometimes you've got to go in heavy and hard because somebody's getting hurt and there's no time.
Yeah.
And you've got to say, right, in the van, cuff, whatever. But you can always then, afterwards, calm it down a bit, I think. And
What's your most
speak to them as humans.
interesting bit of police work in Hereford? Anything
Interest.
stick to mind?
Give us a clue.
I don't know. I'm asking here. What's anything stick to mind? That's like any great cases or anything big or.
I've got to be careful what I
Yeah,
talk about.
I
But
know.
I used to like dealing with crimes, crushing crime, fighting evil. What is it? Fighting crime, crushing evil. We used to say. So getting to know the locals and getting good information in
Proper police work.
and nicking them the night after a burglary had occurred, for example. So I've done a couple of those. But sometimes it's just being there, and somebody used to say, "You're quite lucky you are, Crow." And I'd say, "No, you make your own luck, Sam." That's why I'm out in civvies on my push bike. They used to call me the Crow Man down at Hinton. So I'd get the guys to come out with me. So there was two of us, and I'd go out on push bikes. And at 2 a.m, you'd fall across some just coming back from burglaries and say, "Right, grab
Down
them."
the lines.
Down the lines, empty the bags. There was one really good case where it was a really foggy morning. It was about 4 or 5 in the morning. And I just come over the new bridge, turned left in a police car, marked. I had somebody with me. And there was 2 guys going the other way, and they just, nobody else about. It was dead eerie. They sort of looked at me and looked away quickly. And they were walking towards the new bridge.
Amateurs.
And I said, "Turn round." Pull them. And we stopped them. Searched his rucksack, and he had 2 horror masks, and a load of other equipment that I won't go into. But basically, they were going to get somebody, tie them up and beat them up severely.
Okay.
And it's just
I'll ask you off
going on
camera who that
instant
was.
sometimes. But there we are. I've dealt with loads of cases. But like I say, some of the most gratifying cases for me is where you go to somebody who's just been burgled and said, "We've got him in custody and we've recovered all your equipment."
Yeah, nice.
Or you've been in custody now for 8 hours. I've proven your innocence, and that's where your reputation goes up a bit. Because, and I won't mention names, a couple of young lads were accused of really nasty assaults on a female that I didn't think was true, and we proved beyond doubt that it wasn't. And in the end, the mum sat down with
You
the
never
girl.
think of old Bill taking that role, do you? Try proving
Well,
someone didn't do something.
you
But
get a feeling sometimes.
yeah,
And you've got to be objective in CID. Again, we're human beings. Sometimes I'm convinced somebody's done something, and somebody will say, "Paul, they couldn't have. They were at Heathrow getting on a flight." Like, I could have sworn they did it. So we all do it because you're human.
yeah.
But sometimes you've got to go, "I've got a feeling for this." And here's a good one. 4 lads arrested for robbery. The night shift had nicked them. I'm the DS in the morning. This doesn't sound right. Go through this again. Have we looked at CCTV? Yeah, we see this bloke walk past them, and he says he walks past them in town. And without going too far into the case, he alleges these guys followed him and robbed him with a Coke can. That was the funniest thing.
Robbed him with a Coke can.
So they cracked the Coke can,
Oh, yeah.
slashed his throat, took his watch and his wallet. And I went, and these lads, they were all like quite, they were like goths, is the best way of describing them. Really nice kids. A bit alternative, but really nice. And I got on really well with them. They were like, I can understand why, this was them speaking. I can understand why being arrested because somebody pointed us out as being the people that robbed them. But honestly, we saw him walk past us. We didn't follow him. We just sat chatting and we went our own way afterwards. So I said to the biggest, burliest DC in the office, "Break the Coke can." "How long will it take you to break that then, Steve?" And he went, and it was a double skin one. And you try it.
Rubik's Cube.
And it took him about 57 seconds to go, and he eventually went, "There you are." I said, 57 seconds. Let's get this bloke back in. "You're lying to me. Why are you lying to me?" And he hadn't been robbed at all. done it himself for pity off his girlfriend. 4 lads in custody for now. So the
Because he
arrested.
spent his gyro and was too embarrassed to fess up to it.
We have that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, my phone's been stolen. My mum's told me to come and report it. Tell me about your drugs problem, son. Oh, my bike's stolen, etc. So to go to those young lads and say to the solicitor, we're releasing them,
Yeah.
and see the smile on their face is also pretty good. So
Fair enough.
there we go.
Yeah, it's not a side you expect to hear from.
It
From
happens
the
all the time, in
feds.
fairness.
Where are we at, G? What do you reckon?
You had a nickname, didn't you? In the police.
The Crow Man. They called me the Crow Man because I used to hide. I'm a bit embarrassed to tell this story, actually. When I used to try and motivate the guys on the shift when I was a sergeant, I used to say, look, I'm coming in. On one of our nights, we used to do 7 nights in a row then. We will go out, certain nights were public order fighting nights, but you'd find the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday nights especially, where the criminals would get out and try and burgle places, commit crime, to fund the next weekend.
Get money for the weekend. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Standard.
So I said, let's come in. And when I first muted the idea, people were like, I said, well, I'll come out with you. 2 of us will come in civvies, me being one, the sergeant, somebody else. And typical, one of the ex-squaddies military lads said, I'll go with you, boss. But in the end, most of the shift took turns, in fairness. Some didn't want to, and I didn't force it on them. But there was 4 to 5 that would take it in turns to come out with me or go out together.
Not undercover work.
Well, just in plain
Plain
clothes.
clothes, like, yeah.
So, and it was great for getting around the city quickly and coming across people.
Yeah.
And one night, down by the river, down by the Vicky Bridge, I hid in one of the trees, and this group, they went, yeah, they're coming down to you. Boss, they're coming down now. And we suspect them of breaking into all the clubs and nicking all the money from the fruit machines. And I jumped out the tree and I went, fucking hell, it's the Crow Man. So they called me the Crow Man from then on. So
How did you know about that?
I was talking about a different nickname, actually.
Oh, okay.
Which nickname was that?
Inspector Death.
Oh, that was just a weekend nickname. Yeah.
Do we want to know about that?
I mean, people forget. One weekend, I dealt with 4 sudden unexplained deaths in a row.
Okay. Inspector
Literally,
Death.
by the time I got home, they were calling me out again because I should have been off duty. So you go to a sudden unexplained death, and you've got to establish, or try to establish, what the scene is, what's happened, is anything gone on that shouldn't have gone on, is it a crime or is it
Just a death.
accidental, natural causes. But over the period of a weekend, I went to 4. Don't get me wrong, there were other ones where they could say they wouldn't call out the DIDS every time. It'd only be if there were suspicious circumstances. So one weekend I walked in on the Sunday, and it was my 4th one. They went, bloody hell, it's Inspector Death. All right, Paul. We've nicknamed you Inspector Death for the weekend because you've been out so often. There's so many unexplained deaths happen all the time, but a lot of them happen naturally, and there's no suspicious circumstances. They'll only call out CID if there's a suspicious element to it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I worked for all the funeral companies in Hereford, and I was at one point I was the if anyone died between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. I'd get the call.
Oh wow!
And so I would
You turn up.
I would have private ambulance and
with the body bag.
And it was a lot with the old bill again, and a lot of police escorts, and a lot of weird deaths in Hereford, a lot of normal deaths. People just it's a weird.
Death's a funny thing.
Yeah, it's a weird industry, the death industry, and I got into it for quite a while. And again, the other side of the fence, not in a criminal way. I'm just picking up the body, regardless. And sometimes we get a police escort to the mortuary, sometimes to the funeral home, sometimes to the hospital, depending on whether it was suspicious or. But I picked up a few bodies in a few strange places. I'm sure you have as well. It's.
I've seen quite a lot of death, to be honest.
Yeah, same.
And I think with the military black sense of humour and the police black sense of humour, if you don't have that, you'd sort of. I mean, I've been to some deaths where they're dying on you. You're trying to save them.
Yeah.
And that's.
I've had a couple like that. It's not good.
People forget that you're trying to save people's life, because what a lot of people don't realise as well, police are generally out there all the time, So at 2 a.m. when there's a fire or there's a shout for an ambulance,
Yeah, you get the call out too.
you're there first.
Yeah. I was
You know,
the
you
same
get
in
the-
New York. I was a firefighter in New York, but you all respond together.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's just first come, first serve. So
But generally, like, how many fatal RTAs have I been to? Road traffic, well, they don't call them accidents now. Road traffic collisions,
yeah,
where there's a fatality. And you'd be there. You'd be first before the ambulance crew might be 5-10 minutes away. Fire crew, 15 minutes away.
yeah.
So you'd be dealing with the carnage until they arrived. And the amount of times I've stopped after 10 minutes and they say, "You're right, Paul." I've gone, "Yeah, why?" And they've gone, "You're covered in blood, mate."
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh."
See, like back then, as a person that I've done it all civilian wise. So I mean, I flukily got myself into the New York Fire Department, Company 5, hook and ladder. I was on call for everything. I mean, you're on call for everything, and yeah, I'm amongst all this death and all this destruction, but there's no mention of PTSD or anything back then. I mean,
I think we start getting into debriefings after events, but sometimes you didn't have time.
yeah,
Post-traumatic stress disorder is a reality, and I think
it's a definite
that's
reality.
why I'm going to come on to that later too.
Yeah.
about
I mean,
artwork
that's
and stuff
one of
like
the
that.
reasons I'm heading that way now.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure the police deal with some really nasty instances.
Yeah.
And it does have an effect. Luckily, well, I can't say I was made of stronger stuff because we all suffer in our own way, I think, and that's one of the reasons.
Yeah. It's a generation thing. It's this generation have the luxury of claiming PTSD.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And you know, whether I was in Borstal of my own hand and prison in my own hand or foster home or boarding school, whether people like it or not, and whether it's PTSD, it's trauma, and the same for you on the other side of the fence. You're dealing with all this stuff. You're rushing into these situations, and you have to be traumatized by it. I mean, how you deal with it is individual.
I think most probably, and that's interesting you said that. At the time, you don't. You almost find it exciting and
Same, yeah.
And you're like,
yeah. I'm part of a gang. I saw someone's leg get chopped off. It's fucking great.
Burning House,
it's
for
not,
example, fire brigade just waking up because they just had the call. Get in, clear the flats, boot the door around, drag people out the beds while it's burning down.
Yeah.
At the time, what a buzz.
Yeah. It's great. Let's do it again.
And it's interesting about the military. I learned a lot about PTSD. Not that I suffered. I've been very lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think I did, but we'll come on to that later.
Does anyone think they did?
Yeah, exactly. Good point. But they say post-traumatic stress disorder, especially with military personnel, normally occurs up to 14 years afterwards. When they first start getting the symptoms, and they don't quite know why yet. But everybody thinks, I've been to Afghanistan, Iraq, and sometimes it hits straight away. Don't get me wrong, and you understand that. But sometimes it takes quite a long time, and suddenly they're suicidal and they don't understand why.
Yeah, it's an individual thing, without a doubt. It has to be an individual thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, I'm
hats off to them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm privy to that. So as you. I've been around regiment guys. I've been on the front line with regiment guys. I've been in the pub with regiment guys, and I've had them in my tattoo shop, and
they're good guys.
They are. They're fucking amazing guys. I only use those because they are the bravado, the heroes. The Iranian embassy siege.
I think even attitudes with them are changing. They
yeah. Of course they are.
They recognise now that, and I used to get it being in the military, and part of being so close to your mates was, "You're right, mate.
Yeah.
Come on, let's have a beer." Yeah. And that was your counselling.
Let's have a beer.
It might not be the right thing.
No, but it's
some people used to kick the arse out all the time.
Yeah.
But because you had the mates there, but I know of so many ex-military guys that have kept it to themselves.
Yeah, of course.
And when they sought out and got through it, the mate said, "Mate, why didn't you tell me, you twat?
Yeah.
Because we'd have helped you."
I'm right there now with
and
other ways about that, but
And they always turn around and say, "I didn't want to let you down. I didn't think you'd be bothered."
Yeah.
Well, of course we
It's
would.
shame,
Be twat.
guilt,
Shame,
whatever. Yeah.
guilt.
It's mad, isn't it?
I had a phone call yesterday. Somebody said, "These are the scenarios, Paul." It's a military guy, and he was not in Hereford, somewhere else, funny enough. But a relative phoned me up and said, "Paul, I know you do this art for veterans, and these are my brother's suffering, and he said X, Y, and Z. What do I do?" And I said, "Is he still in the military?" Thinking he'd left.
Yeah.
No, he's still serving. Whoa.
Yeah.
I said, "Hang on. Ring the regiment adjutant up and get some help to him now."
Yeah.
What you've told me sounds like real warning signals. So, yeah, we don't want to go on about that too much, but it's got to be recognised.
Yeah. I want to slide into the artwork. That's why I'm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of pride with the military. One thing was, should we start on the artwork?
Yeah. I mean, with the there is a lot of pride with the PTSD thing. There is a lot of pride, and it's really recognised now, and there's a lot of bravado as well, and pride, and
yeah,
it's weird. Yeah, like people don't want to maybe admit. And especially if you're someone like you're an SAS soldier and you've done Iraq, you've done Afghanistan, and now you've come back and you're a bit messed up by it.
I think sometimes they feel they let themselves down in the face of their friends, and they're letting their friends down, which isn't the case at all.
No one down, have you?
You've let nobody down.
I know from personal experience. And again, that young idiot that decided he wanted to go to the front line and photograph it, and you really don't know what you're letting yourself in for. And it could be it's years later. Once it's all calmed down, the excitement's gone and everything, it is. I mean, I'm at a place now where, amongst loads of other stuff, I seek counsel and I want it and it's helping. I've never thought it had.
Good.
I've never wanted it. I never thought it'd be any good. It's like, I don't need that. You know, even to the point of when I was a child, I've been part of a gang. I've been against you lot. They've been against us lot. But yeah, I mean, eventually it takes its toll. And you need to find a place where you're amongst friends.
Yeah,
and like me and you have got there in the weirdest of ways. We found ourselves doing an exhibition together, an art exhibition.
Yeah.
And you do artwork with veterans now as a recovery.
I think that's mostly one of my proudest things to date.
Same as me, mate.
I took up art when I was still in the police, so didn't even think about it in the military. In fact, my art teacher at school said, "Crow,
you're shit.
You're shit. Join the military.
Do some woodwork, blow shit up."
Blow shit up, you're better at it. He didn't come out with those words, but he sort of said, "Oh, I don't think it's for you."
Yeah.
And I'd love to sit him down now and say, "Look at my
Zach Morris, hope you're listening. That was you once.
So I started when I was still in the police, but kept it almost like a secret. It's quite funny. So I started doing artwork and really enjoyed it because my mum was quite good at art. And I thought, well, photography, so many people do that. I want to push myself. I've got 3 years left in the police and I want to do something totally different. So I'll try some art. And I went for lessons. It went well. And within a year, I had an art exhibition. Because people said, "Love your stuff. Can you exhibit?" And I went, "Oh, God." Didn't think, okay. So I thought, well, I'm now in the... If you go down Church Street, there's the Mayor's Parlour above John McCullough's Jewellers.
Yeah.
It's only small.
Yeah.
That was my first exhibition. So I thought, well, I better tell the shift that I've been doing art because nobody knew. So you imagine you're briefing a shift, you're the inspector, and you sort of go through the routine, you've seen it on the bill and everything else. Keep it safe out there and all this. And I said, before you go, I've got something personal to tell. And I swear to this day, they must have thought, we've done the diversity course. He's going to say he's a cross-dresser or he's coming out the closet or he's changing. And I said, I've been doing some artwork. I've got an exhibition. It's down the road. And all I heard from the back, the ARV guys that have got the armed weapons, and most of them are ex-military, went, "Oh, what the fuck's that all about?" And everybody burst out laughing. I said, "Okay, I just thought I'd tell you, rather than people know from other sources, if you want to go and have a look, that's where it is. And I'll say no more."
When was this?
This must have been 95, 96-ish.
Okay.
was my first exhibition. So anyway, a couple went down, came back, and all I got was "Love your stuff, Paul, fabulous," and it really. There's one military guy come back, and he was literally something triggered him. It really got to him, and he was quite tearful. And I thought, well, if I can evoke those sort of passions in people, and then I sold most of my work to police officers or friends of, and I've done 13 exhibitions since. You?
I got a lot of your work, some of your work behind me. I love that piece, this Infinite Chaos.
That was one you commissioned, though, wasn't it? That was for you.
But it's I love it. I love it that it is commissioned, that it is personal. And it's
personal to you because his dog tags relate to you, don't they?
Yeah, and the Infinite Chaos and the whole. Yeah, I just realised the red bandana as well. I'm so slow on the uptake. But
wonder where I got the ribbon, but that's a classic film, isn't it?
Yeah. No, it's an amazing film, and again with the I mean Vietnam, PTSD, art. I mean it's uncanny how it connects and it all links together.
What they say about art and veterans is this: they say from the research I did, art is the best form of post-traumatic stress disorder therapy.
Yeah, and
they've literally wired up veterans' brains. And they've done all sorts of other type of therapy, woodwork, pottery, whatever. When they do art, something clicks.
Yeah.
And it stimulates part of the brain that they thought, what's going on here? And they don't quite know why, but they're saying art is the best form of therapy.
Yeah, I feel the same about photography. I mean, it's still creative. Yeah, you're creating an image. It's very similar. You're creating an image, whether it's a paintbrush or...
And your images are fantastic.
They're emotionally invoked. It's the same as...
I love that one.
Same, yeah. I mean, I love it too. I mean, I can be proud of it. But it's
such a strong image.
It's again, it's emotionally invoked. It's you're right there. You're on the front line.
See right into her eye, and that little.
Yeah, it's stuck with me.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It has stuck with me, and it's therapeutic to look at. I haven't seen it for a long time. I got it out today, and I thought, "Fuck!" I even forgot I took it. And
you should be proud of that. That's really good.
Yeah,
she did an exhibition at the
courtyard. Yeah. I was talking to someone today about it. George actually, weirdly enough, lives next to David Duran, who was the guy who runs the courtyard. And
that lad, he was quite. He was taken by it.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he said it was.
I did all your write-ups, didn't I?
Yeah, it was again a weird collaboration that is.
Well, we first met through a mutual friend, Pete. I can say Pete.
Pete, yeah.
He was in the regiment.
Yeah.
And he had a massive tattoo, didn't he? Done by, was it Zach?
Yeah. We've shouted his name out a few times already tonight.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But it's quite funny because he's the type of guy that you'd never think would have a tattoo. With all due respect.
Yeah. I mean, I've sat with him and 6 hours on his back, 8 hours on his back.
And he had a massive tattoo. But
sat there.
It's a work of art.
Yeah, no, it is.
It's beautiful.
It's everything to do with his army career.
And his history, engineers, 5-9 Commando, 2 SES.
Everything. It is a work of art. And I'm...
But I laughed at him. I said, no, I haven't got a tattoo. He said, well, I have. I went, wow. On my back. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, he's really proud of it.
So he took it off and I went, Pete, that is brilliant.
I mean, he sat there for hours and hours and he was in pain. And sometimes I'd joke with him, name, rank and number, and we'll stop and he'll be like, fuck you, and just carry on. And
243-623-66.
PO1645 E97863.
Wow. Sticks with you, doesn't it?
Your first and your last, yeah.
Yeah.
It's weird, but yeah, Pete's. I'd like to get Pete on the show actually. Haven't spoken to him for a while, but
yeah.
I did actually call his number the other day, but he must have a new number. But
sometimes he just doesn't answer. You got to.
No, it was the number you've called is discontinued. But
okay.
I will get hold of him because I did a lot of my photography for my degree.
Well, he came to the Art for Veterans.
Yeah, I was at his house, photographing his house.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of real personal photography on Pete, and we were really. Yeah.
You got some great photos of Pete.
It's and again another regiment connection,
yeah.
ex-old Bill connection that you just wouldn't put together in a million years with me
and
anyway.
Pete joined the military on the same day at the same place.
Yeah, I know, it's weird, isn't it?
And then we sort of kept crossing over. He went his way, and I'd bump into him
in the military, and then the police.
Blue, what are you doing here? What are you doing here?
It's weird, isn't it?
And then he turned up in the police station. He was like, "Fuck me, Blue, what are you doing here?" I said, "Blue, sir, if you don't mind."
Yeah, that must be so fucking cool.
And that was joking. I said,
and that must be so cool. I mean, I've met some of my mates, from boarding school, and then they've been in Borstal, and then later on doing a bit of a longer stretch, and they're in Portlandville. But it must be the same sort of, career.
It's the same, although he went off on different things. And
Yeah,
we both did really. But Art for Veterans was started about 18 months ago, and we've got 8 to 10 people in the class.
And that's where people are painting.
So people come to us. We started at HR4K. Ben was fantastic.
Yeah.
But he changed it, rightly so. For him, he had to expand the gym side of the business.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we didn't really fit in there anymore. They were fantastic. And then somebody said, why don't you use Hinton Community Centre? So he spoke to Vince McNally, who runs the boxing club down there.
That's right. We know Vince really well.
Yeah, he's a great bloke. And he said,
George fights
said,
with...
Paul, come on down, speak to me, tell me what you want. Is this big enough? And I went, brilliant.
Yeah.
So we've been there for the last...
He's a diamond of the community.
He is.
He is a fucking
what
diamond.
With COVID, we had to stop
Yeah.
and start again and stop.
Didn't everyone?
But we've... And some of the stories that come out... So it's not just for military veterans, it's Art for Veterans Herefordshire.
Yeah.
But we're also trying to include emergency services.
That's cool.
So we got an ex-police officer who broke his back and he was accident investigation. Amazing story, how he was paralysed from the neck down and went for a dangerous operation in the 80s to get his movement back, and found he does opera singing and painting, but he had to reteach himself.
Oh, wow.
So that's one story. There's other people that are ex-SAS, ex-military, injured in the Falklands. Some haven't been injured, but want to work through things.
Yeah.
And they come to us every Thursday between midday and 2, and we don't charge them anything.
That's now, you're doing that like...
Yeah, we're doing that now.
No.
So tomorrow,
Yeah.
they're doing printing with Karen, who's one of the other... So there's 3 instructors, and I met those through just people and finding out and starting it up. And people donated money, and we got a bank account just for Art for Veterans. We bought all the equipment, and I've said to people, if you want to donate, that's great, but you don't need to. This is free.
Yeah.
This is my way of giving something back, really, because I've been quite lucky with some good jobs that were quite sweet, I suppose.
Let's get to the juicy bit then. We've done the army bit, we've done the copper bit. Let's get to the football bit. I'm just going to get up and grab something. Oh, man. This is a part I wish I'd researched a little bit more, but I'd had other things on my mind. No disrespect to you.
No, don't worry about
I
it.
had some hospital appointments and other stuff going on that I just... Yeah, but... See that? Everyone see that? So Paul, his other job, now he's done with saving the country and being a copper. He's one of the last few Englishmen to touch the original World Cup, the FIFA World Cup. You are basically a bodyguard for the World Cup when it goes on tour. You're in charge of it. Yeah, I know it's a touchy subject. You work for Coca-Cola. There's some things you can't say. We're drinking Coca-Cola right now. They should appreciate that.
I like that.
We bought that. They didn't give it to us. We bought that as part of a Tesco's meal deal. But yeah, I get there's going to be some stuff we can't talk about, and if we cross the line like we did with Captain Rudd, we'll just have to cut it out.
Yeah, no problem.
But yeah, you bodyguard the World Cup. You go on tour with it. They hire out from what I understand, a plane for the season, and you're on the same plane, going to multiple destinations all over the world, looking after the
Coupe du Monde.
The solid gold version of this.
The World Cup. So that's a miniature that was presented to me very kindly by
Very
Coca-Cola
heavy.
and FIFA. So I've got 2 bosses. One would be FIFA, one would be Coca-Cola. And I got involved with Coca-Cola in 2012 with the Olympic Torch Relay, but we'll talk about that a bit later.
Torch over there.
So as a result of that, I started doing more work for them, and then they asked me to take the World Cup around the world on a private jet to different countries, and they call it the World Cup Trophy Tour. So the first one was the Brazilian World Cup, and so what we did is take it around the world to various locations to show the cup off, the real World Cup. it's about 37 centimetres tall.
Was it the real World Cup?
It was the real World Cup, trust me. And it weighs 6.142 kilograms.
Of solid gold.
18 karat gold.
Wow.
Now, it is solid gold, but the actual cup itself isn't, or the trophy, I should say, isn't solid because it's, if they made it solid, it would be too heavy.
Mm.
So it's actually partly hollow inside, but it's made of solid gold. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I feel another collaboration coming on here.
So when they asked me to take the World Cup around the world and explain what I'd be doing, it's more, I wouldn't be, we're the close protection for the World Cup and we are more guardians of the World Cup would be a better analogy, because when you go to different countries, you fly into a country and you're met by the next security team, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So they look after you.
So you do like a handover?
Yeah, so I've been to about, with the World Cup, on 2 separate World Cup trophy tours, the Brazilian one and the the Russian World Cup trophy tour. I think I've done over 85.
I'm rubbing my hands. I can't wait to talk about the Russian side of this. I'm like,
Yeah, I've done about 85, 86 countries, I think, in total. So it's been a lot of travel. They Coca-Cola hire out a private plane, which isn't a small plane. It's huge. And they take the World Cup with the crew and they fly it around the world. They fly into different locations. We're normally greeted at the airport. We then display the World Cup and part of the plane turns into a display unit, the first third. And you get celebrities on boards, heads of state, etc.
have you seen Brad Pitt?
No, you wouldn't know what the World Cup is.
Oh, I bet he does. Don't diss brothers.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. But I've met a number of celebrities, heads of state,
Yeah.
and especially football players, people like Pele, Jeff Hurst.
You met Pele?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's amazing.
Pele calls me Mr. English.
That's
Mr. English, I
quality.
love English. Bobby Moore, so sad that Bobby Moore died.
Yeah,
English, so gentleman. I had to give him the World Cup, hand it to him.
To Pele?
Yeah, to Pele in Paris. I thought I'd died and gone to heaven.
So you personally handed over the World Cup to Pele?
Yeah.
What the and you got paid for that?
A little bit. But he's such a gentleman. And
Yeah.
So we're in Paris and he thinks I'm French. So he comes up to me and starts speaking French. And I said, sorry, Pele, I'm English.
Did you call him Pele?
Yeah.
Yeah, quality.
Of course I did.
Sorry, Pele.
Sorry, Pele, but I'm English. And he went, oh, English, I love the English. You are Mr. English, I love... What do I do? And I had to explain to him how the proceedings would go and then hand him the World Cup. And I literally looked up at him and he's smiling at me and I thought... And it was in the Hotel de Ville,
What country are we in, sorry?
Paris,
Paris,
in
okay,
France.
cool.
So it's in Hotel de Ville, which is the town hall, which is a bit bigger than ours. And it's got all this biblical sort of angels on the ceiling. And I'm looking up at Pele and giving him the World Cup with my white gloves on.
Oh my God, yeah.
And he's smiling at me and I'm thinking, have I died and gone to heaven? For those...
Yeah.
2 or
See,
3
I'm not even a
seconds.
football fan. It's absolutely disgusting to admit, but I'm not a football fan. But this
And
is amazing.
the nice thing about Pele, listen to this. So I hand him the World Cup. I've got to wear white gloves because there's only 2 people who can touch that original World Cup. That's heads of state. So it's not the Prime Minister. I've been asked by certain Prime Ministers, can I touch the World Cup? No, you can't. Only the Queen can because she's head of state.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, why is that then?
It's just a FIFA rule.
Okay.
And also previous winners of the World Cup. So Pele being a previous winner,
Yeah.
Jeff Hurst, the French team, etc., can hold and touch the World Cup. Nobody else can touch it. So yeah, it's quite an honour really to present it. And I've always got my white gloves on when I put it in position for display or when I give it to one of the celebrities and put it away. Yeah, that can be quite fun as well.
How many times have you done this then? How many is it, like seasons or?
I've done 2 World Cup trophy
2
tours. So I
okay.
started in 2013. Yeah, ready for the 2014 World Cup in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Now, thinking about it, you think you've got to go around all these countries. I don't do every country. So me and another guy would do sort of 4 or 5 weeks on, then take a break.
Take it in shifts, right?
And another
As you
team would take
yeah,
over.
Yeah.
So when you think about it, the first World Cup trophy tour I was involved with took 9 months.
That's mental.
The last one with Russia.
You get an itinerary of the countries you're going
Yeah.
to. So you know ahead of time where you're going.
And you're like, ooh.
Yeah,
Brutal.
it's brutal. It sounds. I guess some people think that sounds like
It sounds
the
glamorous.
greatest job on earth, but yeah, brutal.
The
is
best
probably,
ones are where you've got 2 or 3 days there and you can relax a little bit. But I've done.
Did you do the Maldives? Did I dream it? Or
Yes.
You did. You just.
Was it the
It's
Maldives?
quite in and out.
Yeah, it was in and out. We did a load of the Caribbean islands.
Yeah, yeah.
Was it the Maldives? I can't remember.
I vaguely remember you talking about somewhere, and yeah, I mean, on paper it looks like the dream job, but actually, when you think about all the travel, all the landing, the taking off,
Well, bear in mind that we might do 2 countries in a day.
yeah, yeah.
And in one period, we did
Taxing.
six countries in 3 days.
You know.
So that was like up at 4 or 5 in the morning, flying out, not sleeping, getting back on a plane at midnight, going on to the next country.
Is there beds on the plane, or are you just chairs?
There's not beds, but big chairs, if that makes sense.
You spread across 3 chairs,
So you could, because you've got the crew at the back.
It's not Air Force One then.
Not quite Air Force One, but it's quite impressive.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I've seen.
And you can go online and look.
Yeah, I've seen pictures. I have had a cheeky look online, and yeah, it does look quite impressive. And there was something I really wanted to ask you about this, but for the love of God, it's escaped me. Help me out, G.
The Russian, I believe,
Oh yeah, the Russian one. Yeah, when I was crossing Greenland, with the boss, my mate Pete Redding, for some reason said to me, I don't read books, but he said to me, this book, The Russian Journal, which I've actually got an original of upstairs now. I got it from Amazon. It impressed me that much. But being a dyslexic and hating books, the area of audiobooks is really...
Ah, nice.
It's really... Yeah, so I collected some audiobooks before I left, and one of them was Frankenstein, because I remember as a kid, he ended up in Antarctica.
Right, I didn't realise
yeah,
that.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Ultimately, he ends up in Antarctica, where he's hiding away from the world. So that seemed quite...
So you're saying you like Frankenstein now?
Quite relevant to read, to listen to while I was crossing this glacier. But the other one was this Russian journal, which was an amazing photographer, Robert Capa, who I studied my degree partially about Capa. But yeah, they basically were an American journalist and this photographer that went to Russia to propaganda them. And it was quite the opposite. They found beautiful people, beautiful food.
Yeah.
And I just know that talking to you, that this book in my head connects with you and this journey that I took crossing Greenland. Listening to these guys that went to Russia to completely prove what a bunch of bastards they were, and actually fucking fell in love. Fell in love with the food. The Russians, the people, everything about them, in fact.
Yeah.
And it turned me on to Russia in a way, because everyone's like Putin, this, that, and dictatorship. And I still believe that if I go to Russia like you, I'm gonna walk away with a love affair, some sort of relationship that would be ongoing with a country that's so massive. How can you write off the whole country based on propaganda?
Yeah, and I think you're right. But bear in mind my history with the military. We were fearing the Russians would come over the border at us. And of course, when I went to Russia, so Russia say to FIFA and Coca-Cola, can we have the World Cup for 6 months prior to the tournament? Because we got 11 time zones.
Yeah.
And it's huge. And we want to take it to all our citizens and show it off as much as we can. It's a big thing. Mr. Putin said it will be safe, blah, blah, blah. So Coca-Cola and FIFA says you can, but you've got to take the British guys with it, because they're experts and become experts on how to present it, how to look after it, security, etc. So that's how the deal goes. So we end up going to Russia. And being ex-military, I was a bit...
I say, are you nervous? Do you think there's going to be
nervous? Definitely nervous. Because...
In your head, do you think there's going to be an attempt of something?
Well... No, because on the previous World Cup, funny enough, we actually went to Moscow for 5 days. And in that instant, Putin had guaranteed us safety.
Okay, I mean, that's...
and so we went to the Red Square, or Gorky Park near the Red Square, and set it up, and it went very well. And I've started to change my attitude about the Russians. So when you think I'm flying into Russia ex-military with certain factors of my military service that they might be interested in, dare I say.
Yeah, for sure.
I then am greeted by what are all ex-KGB officers, and the guy in charge of the security team was they call them the FSB now, Federal Security Bureau, FSB Colonel, and all the other guys and girls in the security team, most of them were ex-KGB or military of some sort. So that was quite interesting. I found, to start with, they were very wary of me and I was very wary of them. But as time went on and we broke barriers down, we ended up appreciating each other. And I must say, the Russian people, bear in mind, we had a lot of youngsters on the tour as well that were doing the event side of stuff.
Yeah.
So you had
they're
professionals, professionals in their own right, but they were more eventing and more, youngsters, and it was just a really nice mix. And I went to, I think it was about 16 cities in Russia.
Fair play.
I did, right the way from Moscow to Vladivostok. So some of the Russian security guys were like, "Paul, we have never been to."
Yeah, you've been to more places than they have.
You've been to more places than we have, and we are Russian.
Yeah.
So that was quite nice. But what I found, and everybody says to me, "Yeah, but some of the Russians I've met are arrogant. They're on holiday." I said, "Yeah, the ones that can afford to go on holiday are the ones with the money that tend to be a bit arrogant."
Yeah.
But you've got to bear with them. If you drill under that, they're actually quite nice people. And an example of it was when I was in Russia. I took my lads when I had a break to see the first England game against.
You get tickets from FIFA, yeah?
Yeah, I had to buy tickets from FIFA. They're very strict. You can only have, each FIFA member can only have 4. So luckily the lady said, "Look, I'm not going, Paul. If you need any tickets, but I can only get you 4, let me know." So I took 3 of my lads to Russia. We went to Moscow, St. Petersburg and Volgograd. That used to be Stalingrad, and that was just so interesting. And then we're on a bus going to the first.
That must be amazing with family.
So we're on the bus. It's like going to Whitecross, because if you had a pass on you for the game, you could get on transport for nothing. Very well organised. The Russians had it sorted down to a T. So we get in the bus, tap on my shoulder, and this lady is full of normal shoppers, normal people.
Yeah.
"Excuse me, are you English?" And I look around, everybody's stopped talking and looking at us, and I'm like,
"Niet."
in my bus Russian accent, "Not at all." No, I said, "Yeah, why?" She said, "My mother would like to thank you. You saved our lives."
Oh, wow.
In World War II. She wants to honour you. She'd never thought she'd hear another English voice.
You don't know that old.
I was there. No, so what she said, the English used to send goods to Russia, to Murmansk, but also for Volgograd, Coventry, having been bombed by the Germans, sent a load of sugar, flour, goods to Stalingrad to help them. They lost 2 million people in the siege of Stalingrad. They were literally, they took us to the Volgograd was behind them, the Volga, the river, and they said, "This was our last line of defence, Paul." And they were across the street.
Who was that against?
The Nazis.
Oh, okay.
So she said, "We've named a street called Coventry Street.
Oh, wow.
And thank you for helping us in the war effort. You saved my life."
That's crazy, isn't it? That's fucking
and
crazy.
I had to have a picture with her, and she was crying, and all the people on the bus were clapping.
Really?
And I'm like, "Hang
mental.
on, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Have I missed something? These people are brilliant."
Yeah.
And
that's what I got from this book. It's nothing
the
like
normal
what I've
Russian
led to being
people
believed.
are the warmest people going.
Yeah.
They share their last bread with
I
you.
truly believe that. I mean, I still have people arguing with me now. Yeah, that through their, like the Cyprus Turkey thing, you got the Romanian Russia thing, the Lithuanian Russia thing. Whatever's going on over there, but you can't fucking hate on a whole nation for what Putin's doing or for what whoever's doing. In general, from what I got from this book and from you, is Russian people are, and I've lived with them in Cyprus and dealt with them, worked with them, partied with them. They're not that bad.
They're good people. They're good people, and they're funny. They like.
They are funny. Yeah, they're
and
hilarious.
if they
when
trust
they're drunk,
you,
they're fucking hilarious.
Well, I've got some really quite funny stories.
Is it Alexei? Is it Alexei? One of the KGB blokes?
I can't say, but
Okay.
it could be something like Ivan. We'll call him Ivan.
We'll call him.
Because I don't want to embarrass him, bless
That's
him.
cool. Well,
But he's very professional.
chances of him hearing this are slim, but
Trust me, chances of hearing this are very
testing,
good.
testing, 1, 2, 3.
Uh,
I can't remember exactly what his name was. I remember you telling me stories about they took you out, you took them out.
Well, towards the end of the first part of the tour, so we did 3 months in Russia, then we went round the world with the World Cup, then on the 1st of May we flew back into Volgograd from Tokyo, and then we did the second phase of Russia, and then the football game started.
Did you Siberia?
Yeah, we went through
Yeah,
Siberia and
really?
everything. But it's amazing, you'd fly from Volgograd for 3 hours, and you'd think, I must be halfway across Russia.
Yeah.
You're about
Yeah.
a tenth of the way across Russia. It's massive.
Yeah.
11 time zones.
It's mental, isn't it?
So in the Second World War, the Russians had a theory. They said, all we were going to do, Paul, we just withdraw, burn everything, kill all the livestock, so the Germans can't have it, drag them away, take all the meat away, burn all the fields, burn everything, and just keep going back, wait for the winter, and then they're all going to freeze to death.
Yeah, starve to death or freeze to death.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
So, and they got a saying in Russia, we can always just go as far west as you want to go, or east, sorry.
Yeah, it's
Keep
massive.
going
It is
east.
a massive, massive country.
Because if you keep driving, I was going to do the Orient Express, and I said, well,
Okay,
how
I
many
want to do
I've
that.
always wanted to do that. Oh,
Yeah.
So
Or
how
the
long will it
Trans-Siberian.
take to do that Trans-Siberian?
Yeah,
Thinking
yeah,
a week?
yeah.
Oh, it's about 3 months, Paul.
Is that what it is on a train?
It's
I would love to do
horrendous.
that. I mean, me and the boss
To do
keep
it
talking about
properly.
Lake Baikal or Bakar, how you pronounce it, but one of the largest frozen lakes in Russia. But yeah, given the opportunity, I would love to do the Trans-Siberian.
But the Russians were really good. I got on really well with them. I actually got presented with an FSB badge in a box,
Oh wow!
cat badge. They said, Paul, we know you like your badges, and this is an appreciation of you working with us. One day I turned up at a lot of the time we were displaying it in big supermarkets, shopping centres, I should say.
Like
And
a
that
mall
was-
or something, shopping
Yeah,
mall.
big
something like
shopping
that.
malls. They had these malls everywhere. My lads couldn't believe how modern it became.
Yeah.
There was some really poor areas and then very opulent areas, and it was
What's the turnout like? Good.
yeah for the World Cup. They loved it.
Really?
Absolutely, and that surprised me.
Yeah, I know. It surprised me.
Surprised me that they queue up for hours. People we'd have. I mean, when we were in certain countries, we would get through. If that's the World Cup there, they'd come in, smile, have the photograph taken. By the time they leave, somebody's handing them the photograph with Coca-Cola. Gone online, you can print off more.
Yeah.
35,000 people in a day.
It's mental. I never even associate
35.
Russia with the World Cup. It's always England, Germany, Italy.
I think for Russia, it's. I mean, you look at the football team now, and they did quite well in the World Cup. I went to watch one of the matches, but where were we? I think we were in Volgograd. No, St. Petersburg. I went down to watch just one of the big screen things. And the funny, because my boys were a bit worried about violence.
Yeah.
Russians against us. So Ivan, I said his name, said to me, he says, Paul, bring your boys to Russia. I promise you there will be no trouble. This is my card. Any trouble, 24/7 you call.
Yeah. Now it strikes me that that's what it's like. It's not
That's
what
what
you
it's
know,
like.
it's who you know.
But he said what had happened 2 years prior to the World Cup happening, once they knew the World Cup was happening,
Yeah.
they sent out all these youngsters from the FSB who integrate with all these fighting gangs, and then come 3 months before the match started. All right, Ivan, how's you today? I hear you're one of the big gangs. Oh no, you're a leader. No, I'm not. Come here, Ivan 2. Speak with him. This is your 2IC. He's one of us. Sit down, write contract.
Yeah.
If you break contract, you go to prison for 3 years.
That's
you don't-
controlling it.
If you break curfew, 4 years. You fight with any foreigners, you go to prison for 6 years. Bang.
It's crazy when you see I mean, I've seen some of these Louis Theroux documentaries of like the Russian white supremacists and they are to think that someone can control those and these football groups. But yeah, they are.
I mean,
it's a credit to Putin. He can control whatever he wants, can't he?
you can knock Putin, but one thing I'll say, and this is what Ivan used to say to me. He said, "Paul, we walked down into Moscow on the eve of the tournament starting, and there was football fans from all over the world, and it was party atmosphere, and it was fantastic.
No trouble, no
nothing. And Ivan said to me, Paul, 10 years ago we couldn't do this. You'd be robbed by now.
Yeah.
You couldn't walk freely in the streets.
Yeah.
Well, let's go back to perhaps 15, 20 years. And he was quite level about this.
Yeah.
He said, Mr. Putin has come in and he's sorted it out. So
it's the same as Saddam Hussein in his area.
Russia is safer.
Yeah.
Because of it.
Yeah.
You might not like certain things he's done, but you know. Overall, it's... And even the kids were like, look, we understand.
If the locals stand by him and everyone else, it's who's to argue? How are we doing, G, for time? We've got time for pickles?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay, so yeah, I mean, I would really like to close this having a dig at the old Bill. And what better fucking dig to have is, while the old Bill having a tea break, the fucking World Cup gets stolen.
You can't say that.
I can say it. It's on. It's. I can say it because I read about it today on Google, and not 3 days before I was born, a year before I was born, 1966, March the 20th.
He's done his homework.
I've got to do my homework, mate. That's how I do my homework to protect you. That's how I know that Coca-Cola can't say anything about it, because it's common knowledge. It's on the internet, and the World Cup got stolen for the first time on March the 20th, 1966, and what do you know about that?
It was the old World Cup.
It was the winged. Yeah,
the Jules Rimet Trophy, which is sung about on the Free Lines. 30 years of hurt and all that type of stuff.
Yeah.
40, 50, whatever.
So it didn't look anything like this.
It didn't look anything like that. So the story behind the World Cup is Jules Rimet Trophy. That was in London for the 1966 World Cup.
Yeah.
And in Westminster Hall, it disappeared.
Yeah.
Whether that was the police's fault, I'm not saying.
Apparently they were on a tea break. Blame Google for that, but yeah.
And it was found by a chap walking his dog called Pickles.
Yeah.
And it was wrapped up in paper, stuffed in a hedge.
Yeah.
And he recovered...
There's two stories I found today. It was stuffed in a hedge and it was leaning up against a car tyre. So either Pickles went to piss on a car wheel and found it, or led the guy to a hedge. But yeah, there's two... I mean, it's the same story told by the same guy.
It went missing anyway.
Yeah.
It went missing, it was found.
For the first time.
Pickles got a silver medal.
Pickles got a lot of medals.
He got a lot of medals.
So Pickles was basically a cross collie dog, like a sheepdog. That was out with his owner, and indicated to this parcel.
Apparently, went after the World Cup.
And so basically, Pickles indicated to this parcel, and the owner opened it up, and there it was. Fuck me, solid gold World Cup.
Solid gold World Cup. A bit of history for those that are into football, because I am.
I'm not.
And I remember us winning the World Cup, so I get really frustrated.
Yeah.
I was lucky to be invited down to the semi-final, England-Denmark. What a brilliant night that was. I'm very disappointed that we lost the European Cup, but that's how things go. That's football for you. But the Jules Rimet, and why they turned to this World Cup trophy, as it's called, basically Brazil won that World Cup.
Yeah, 3 times.
3 times.
Yeah.
So they thought, we'll present them with the World Cup because they won it 3 times.
So that was just for clarity for people that don't follow football. So they won the World Cup 3 times. It went missing. Pickles found it. They gave it back to them to keep.
No. So what happens in 1966? The World Cup was in London.
Yeah.
In England. That's when it went missing. It was found again, and they carried on using that as the World Cup.
Yeah.
Now in 1974, Brazil won it, and they'd won it for the 3rd time.
Yeah.
At that stage, and because they won it for 3 times,
they get to keep it.
FIFA decided we'll let them keep it.
Yeah.
So it went back to Brazil. And then they commissioned artists from various countries to come up with a new World Cup. And Silvia Gazzaganina, I might have said the name wrong, but it looks like that when you write it out. Gazzagnina was an Italian artist, and it was made by Bertoli in Milan. So they sculpted that, and that was the new World Cup
Okay,
trophy.
hold up. Back up a little bit. From what unless I've got this wrong, Brazil had it, got given it, and then lost it again.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah.
Not this World Cup trophy, but
No, not this one. So
the
this
original
one.
World Cup trophy.
So Pickles found it. They gave it to Brazil, and then
it went to the Brazilian
it
FA.
went to and then it got stolen again, and it's never been recovered since.
Absolutely right.
And that's
you
where
said
this-
it, not me.
Yeah, that's why. Well, again, it's common knowledge.
It's common knowledge.
Yeah. So Coca-Cola, don't fire Paul because I googled it. But yeah, so this trophy came about because after Pickles found the original one, they gave it to Brazil because they won it 3 times in a row, and then it got stolen from the Brazilians and never recovered.
Never recovered. Never
Yeah.
been seen since.
Yeah.
I think it was 1984 it was actually stolen.
Yeah.
So that was the Jules Rimet trophy with 2 wings. And this trophy now is about 37. That's obviously a miniature, but the real trophy is about 37 centimetres tall and weighs just over 6 kilograms.
It's like a car battery.
Yeah, about the weight. It's quite heavy.
Yeah.
It's quite heavy. So I can handle it, but I've got to wear white gloves every time I handle it. And like I say, only heads of state and those that have won it can actually hold it. But it's beautiful. It becomes a bit like Lord of the Rings, you know, Smeagol.
Yeah.
The Ring. When you're with it so often and you've looked at it so much and you admire the beauty, it's a beautiful trophy, trust me. It almost becomes hypnotic. Get your hands off.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
mine.
I can imagine. And that's again going back quickly to the Pickles one. And in the end, they made a fake, which I'm gonna try and make sure I get my facts right. So they made a fake, and they gave it to I think Nobby Styles presented it to Bobby Moore, and that was the last time it was actually the original World Cup. And from then onwards, it was the fake. Yeah, it is. I googled it today, and I've watched. When you get really bored, just Google World Cup theft videos on YouTube.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah, so basically, someone commissioned a silversmith to make a fake, and Nobby Styles actually handed the original over to Bobby Moore, and that was the last time the original was used. And from then on, it was the fake World Cup. Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Yeah, what little research I did do for this was today, so it's quite fresh in my mind. But yeah,
I mean, for the football fans, I've seen when you go to a place like South America. There's a good example. I think it was Argentina. We turn up, we display the World Cup. The Argentinians have gone out of their way to do a massive event, and it was like the circus coming to town, and the World Cup was the centrepiece.
Yeah.
They were queuing up for hours to get in. 35,000 people in a day went through as a photograph of the World Cup.
it's mad, isn't it?
Very clever system.
Yeah,
Coca-Cola
it's
got
quality.
it sorted. And it's amazing to see. But then I was in Vietnam. And again, somebody said, Paul, you better come and look at this. Vietnam. And they're all still dressed in their greens. Because it's North Vietnam.
It's
But
still communist, is it?
it is sort of, but they're going towards opening up, dare I say, because it's not North and South anymore. So they control South Vietnam as well. And they're all turned up in their greens. And we've got these Brazilian girls in all their fancy outfits and dancing. And these Vietnamese stood there going, and I'm not joking, it was 10 abreast going back about a mile, the floor.
Yeah, really?
And I was like, wow.
Just to catch a glimpse?
Just to, honestly,
And they don't even come anywhere close to qualifying, do they?
I've displayed the Rugby World Cup, I've done the torch relay, I've done the Women's World Cup, and I've done 2 World Cup trophy tours. So I've done quite a lot with major sort of iconic trophies, but that, people travel halfway around the world just to get there.
Yeah. It's
Just to see that.
I remember a couple of years ago when you said, I'll just take a picture of my business card next to it. I mean, literally, I just wanted a schizophrenic tattoo card next to the World Cup, but yeah.
But I never did that.
It's security, isn't it? Security is paramount. You're back on tour. You're going to do another stint, aren't you? Allowed to talk about that? You working for Coca-Cola again?
I don't know is the answer.
Okay. If you do know, will you tell us where you're going to be with the World Cup? What hotel? What time? What day?
I mean, the next World Cup's the next World Cup's in Qatar. That's going to be at the end of 2022 in our winter time because it's cooler over there then. And I don't know what the tour is going to consist of, but I think there is going to be at least one more trophy tour.
Quality. With
the World Cup.
And you'll be part of that?
I might be.
Yeah, cool.
I might be. So there we are.
Cool. What do you reckon, G? We're good to wrap it, yeah? Yeah, quality. Well, yeah, amazing. I know it'd be cool. I know it'd be interesting.
I hope it's been interesting.
No, it really has. It's a completely different dynamic to Captain Rudd. You've come in number 2, not against or it's been on my mind a lot that it's a completely different dynamic.
Yeah, and that's good.
And yeah, I mean it's the military side's interesting, the police side's interesting, the football side to people is interesting, and pickles and all. But yeah, it's I'm really happy with it. It's gone really well. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Yeah, it's been mega. And can I keep this?
No. No is the answer.
Quality. That's it. Podcast 2.